Morning to everyone. In today's session, we are all going to learn what is all about personality, values, attitudes, and the relevant theories related to these particular terms or concepts. So let's begin with personality first. So now we talk about the meaning of personality. So what is all about the personality is the personality has been derived from the Latin word which is called persona, speak through. It refers a role where a particular person or an actor or you can see a writer display what they actually thinking, what they actually you can see portraying a message to the public, and that's called personality. So a personality refer or is one of the characteristic of an individual or a quality of an individual which makes him which makes him or her different from other persons or people, basically called a personality. It does or embraces whatever the thinking, behaving, or the opinions, the mood. That is, it also refers that how an individual among the social group, and that exactly called personality. There are various authors who has defined the term personality, and these two was one of the that I referred on in the particular slides. So the first one is Fred Luthans. He defined personality means that how affect others and how he understand and view himself or carry himself, and whatever the you can see the pattern of the measurable traits, whether inner or outer, and how they illegally that personality. When we talk about inner and outer measurable traits, we also talk about the qualities of an person. We talk about the sense of togetherness. So we always talk about it is an individual process. So it refers to an individual process, that how the different people perceive a same or identical situation, event differently, and that's called perception. So it refers, in other words, it refers to a process that by which the people organize, the people experienced, and how they process materials from any external environment. That is also called perception. So we talk about the perception that the it is an individual process, or it is the behavior that actually what the people perceive, that it is exactly are, but not necessarily what the reality is, and that's called perception. When we talk about the values, it refers to a judgmental elements of what is right, what is wrong, and what is actually desirable. So, in other words, it also refers to an individual standards or the ideas about a particular person, about an object, about an event, or about an activity ought to be. And that exactly called value. So, value, we always denote and a person think about what is right and wrong and desirable, and that actually portray your personality, and that's called values. The next concept is attitudes. Attitude refers that how the individual feel, think, or act towards the other people, objects, events, or activity, and that's called attitude. So attitude and the value are both interrelated to each other, which are always based on perception, as the perception is a behavior of what they perceive is reality to be, and not necessarily what the reality is. So that is called the perception. So the perception, the values and attitude are interrelated to each other, and they are both interrelate and or relate directly or indirectly to a concept that's called perception. Perception denotes the personality. Why? Because personality always taught about what is right and what is wrong, which is called in ethics. So personality also refers to an ethics, that how the person behave, how the person think, whether it would be right or wrong, which ultimately based on the perceptions only, that how they perceives the things, material, you can see the other people and how they interact with them, and that's called the perception, which also denotes your personality. If you are thinking right about any of the other persons or objects, so definitely it denotes your personality, which is one of the main, you can say, another characteristic of an individual, and that makes you different from others. So that is the three main terms which are being used in personality, and these three terms ultimately improvise your personality according to a situation and how you interact among the people. So that is all about in this particular concept. Now we talk about the personality characteristic in an organization. So when we talk about the organization, we are not talking about the individual person, individual, or you can say we are actually talking about the group of persons. So these are the personality characteristics in the organization. The first one is locus of control. So the individuals who always think about that their own actions, their own thinking, their own behavior, their own, you can say, feelings have ultimate impact or in determining or to find out what will happen to them or to other persons. That's called internal locus of control. So whatever you're thinking, and if you're thinking impact others directly or indirectly, whether it what will happen to them or what could be a possible, you can say, impact on them, and that's called internal locus of control. And the individuals who think or who believe that any outside factors or forces are the responsible for your own behavior, for your own actions, that's actually called the external locus of control. That means external means the people and the particular circumstances, you can say, control your fate. That means control yourself, and that's called the external locus of control. So it doesn't mean that the internal, you can say, are more easily motivated. No, internal are equally being more motivated, and of course need less direct supervision than external. External need more supervision. External need more motivation when they perform any task in an organization. But internal, you can say, need, you can say, very easily motivation, and they don't need any more direct supervision. When we talk about internal locus of control, they can easily work without having less supervision, without having more motivation. They can easily perform their work, and that's called internal locus of control, because what they think, they actually impact in determining their own results, their own outcome, and what will happen to them, and that's called internal locus of control. Next concept is next characteristic in personality, self-esteem. Self-esteem is that level, is that extent or to which people have pride in itself, pride in themselves, and they actually believe in their capabilities, their abilities, and that exactly called the self-esteem. So it does it. If we talk about the self-esteem, if you have more and more or high self-esteem, definitely, and you believe in that, it ultimately leads to success. So if you have less or low self-esteem, so definitely it will leads to failure. So ultimately, the on the screen and the slide always shows that whether the individuals who have self-esteem or high self-esteem, they believe in their abilities, they believe in their capabilities, and they always focus to achieve the goals and perform difficult to difficult tasks in their particular life and of course in the organization. And the individuals who have low self-esteem are always have a full set out whether I could able to work or not, and they don't apprehend themselves, and as a result it reaches to not even success but it reaches to ultimate failure as well. So even in real life, the people who have a low self-esteem may be just as capable as those with high self-esteem. It means the people who have low esteem, it might be have a possibility that they can reach to success, but it's not necessarily. It's not surely that it will reach to success with a long period of time. But if a person or an individuals who having a high self-esteem, then ultimately they challenge themselves that I whatever the work comes in my way, whether it's challenging to me, I will definitely accept that task and do my best to reach the success, and that's called individual with high self-esteem. So this is the one of the characteristic of your personality, which always shows in your character. Now we talk about the personality development, that how the personality could develop themselves. The growth, personality development refers a growth in personal nature. That the thinking process, the you can say the behavioral process, the act process. So that is if you are having or you are reaching to a right approach, so definitely it will be a growth in your personal nature. The next one is growth in personal character. So we are talking about the personal characters. If there's any growth, that means your personality is developing. The next one is physical and psychological makeup, your humor, your sense of humor, your overall personality. You can see the psychological, we talk about the motivational, we talk about the leadership, we talk about the coordination, we talk about it, how you support, how you apprehend, how you take the people, take the persons together in an organization, and that means that is one of the tool of your personality development. The next one is progress, evolution, and maturing. So definitely, if you are progressing in your aim, in your goals, so definitely your personality is developing. Evolution, that you have evolved yourself into a new task, into a new challenging work, and ultimately it will reach into a success. So definitely your personality is developing and maturing when your thoughts, your mind is enough mature to take up long decisions, to take up decisions which are very helpful for own self and of course for the organization, for others, personally or non or professionally, and that means your personality is developing. The next one is disposition and persona, that means the character and the role that you portray or to process into a public, and the character that you mainly want to be. It would be, you can say, positive or the negative or the partial or rational or irrational. So it depends that how you portray yourself, how you carry yourself, and that ultimately shows that your personality is developed or developing. So personality development is a process, it's not a result. After all, it is a continuous process that keep on progressing, keep on evolving, and they keep on maturing, and that's called personality development. The next one is theories of personality development. So there are main three theories. The first one is psychoanalytic theory. The third one is tricks theory, which are classified into two more theories. The first one is Gordon Allport trait theory and the Raymond Kettle trait theory. And the self theories, which are categorized into two main theories, that is a self actualization and self concept. So let's begin the overview of all these theories. The first one is psychoanalytic theory. When we talk about the psychoanalytic theory, this theory has been developed by Sigmund Freud, which is an influencer and which is also the one of the social psychologists who always focuses on three main issues. The first one is ID, second one is ego, and the third one is super ego. When we talk about ID, it always talk about the pleasure, you can say, principle. ID always refers to or relate to a pleasure principle. When we talk about the ego refers to you can say the reality principle. Super ego will always talk about the moral or ethics principles. So when we talk about the ID always comes at birth, and it always you can see develop at birth only, because the ID, one of the issue where the particular child becomes selfishness. I wanted this, I want this, I want this only. I don't care about anyone. So that means let's the parents and goes out, let's party at home. We don't care of anyone. And that is the issue in case of the ID. So the ID believes in the, you can say, pleasure principle, where whatever I do, I get the pleasure, I will become happy, and I don't care about anyone. So that's called the issue, the ID, because that comes since the birth. So it is a responsibility of the parents that to understand their child behavior, their thinking, their act, and how they interact with the people, how they interact with the persons, so or among the social group, either their friends, their relatives, or any unknown ones. So that is the main issue of the ID. The next one is the ego. The ego relates to the, you can say, the reality principle. That means the ego refers, you can say, a mediator who always helps others to negotiate the issues, and that's called the ego. Ego comes around in a child around 3 to 6 months, because where the child always try to learn something which could be wrong, which could be right. So automatically the ego refers always believes that whatever the right, we plan it, we do it, and accordingly we solve the issue. And that's called the reality principle. So let's take an example. You can say the reality is what I really want to be, that exactly not able to get it. So if I want a car, but I'm not getting. I have to earn it, and that's called ego because that's the right approach to buy a car. To earn, then you will get a car, and that's called ego. And the another example you could say that to take like be at home, like if you talk about the example of home, so parents given instruction that don't play at home, otherwise it would be too risky for you. So that means a piece of advice given by the parents, and accordingly they will plan. The child or a person could plan and play at home. So that's called the ego. So you know the issue could arise due of your action, and you also the one that to avoid the issues and apply the action, the measures to avoid you can say any you can say harm outcome. Then the next one is super ego, that we talk about the values, we talk about the morals of the society. Then this particular person always know what is right and they believe in that. So it refers to a moral or ethical principles that I will do whatever I will do. For example, don't disobey your parents. So if it is right, I will do it. If it is not right, I will not do it. And that's called the super ego. And one of this theory always says that these three functions, the ID, the ego, and the super ego, are closely related to each other and always being integrated, closely integrated functions. These three issues, that means these three terms, it always integrate to each other, and whatever the this theory stands for just because of these three main concepts, where the particular psychologist, Mr. Sigmund Freud, has described these three main concepts, and this theory it's related to three main these concepts only. So when we talk about the super ego, we talk about the ear. So it needs the you can say parents advice. It needs, and they are ready to make the judgments based on the parents advice. So that's called the super ego, and that is all about the psychoanalytic theory. And such theory is always you can say in real, it is worked for a long period of time. The psychologists will apply such theories. The psychiatrists apply such theory in the real world. So these are the basic concepts that ID is considered mostly the biological and the physical function, that it's since the birth and it's a principle of pleasure. But when we talk about the ego, we talk about the human personality and always a mediator between the ID and the average superego. But if your friends are being into a fight, the ego will mediate that fight to try to solve the issue and to avoid such fight, or to make them not to fight each other, and that's called the ego. Ego is mostly we can call a partial rational, because always when we talk about the mediator, always try to avoid the or to solve the situation between, or for example a fight between your own friends. So that is called the ego. When we talk about the super ego, we talk about the moral and ethical values. We talk about the moral system. They know what is right and wrong, and which is based and shown on their behavior. And that's called the morality of an individual. So that is, for example, it is our persona, our celebrity. So that the super ego The celebrity know what is right and wrong, and accordingly they will react or act in a society. So that is, it's called a super ego. So when we talk about the ego always lies between these two functions, that is the or the issues or the main concept, that is ID and super ego. So if there is a clash between the ID and superhero, ego is always there to mediate. The next one is trait theory. So the trait theory is always a biggest area of research in the personality development, because this theory is mainly based on the 16 personalities of an individual. And for example, and trait theory refers the quality that is that it's known for. If one of my teacher called me that you are the intelligent candidate or a student in a class, so the other people also termed me as an intelligent and listen what I should say in a classroom. So that's called the trait theory. So what the teacher characterized my personality being as an intelligent, so automatically the others will also consider me as the same, and that's called the trait theory. So the trait theory is always the biggest area of research, which always helps to develop your personality, and it always mainly focus about the differences in the people with their own set of personalities traits. Traits, it refers to a characteristics, a quality that a person hold. So that is called a trait theories. For example, is already given an example. If my father is outgoing, fun-loving, extremely active for his age, so definitely every other person or every other candidates were always known my father on these basic, you can say the characteristics, the personality, own set of personalities qualities. So that is called outgoing, fun-loving, extremely active for us, and that's called the trait theory. So trait is a distinguished feature, a distinguished quality or a characteristic of an individual that it's he or she would known for, and that's called the trait theory. Under the trait theory are classified into two main theories. Trait theory. The first one is Gordon Allport trait theory. Gordon Allport is a social psychologist who has developed this theory, which is called a three-type theory in 1936, which have almost discovered over the 4,000 listed personality characteristics or the qualities of an individual. But this particular author, which the name called, that is Gordon Allport, has categorized into three main characteristics or the qualities of an individual. According to the Gordon Allport, that is the cardinal trait, central traits, and the secondary traits. Secondary traits are the additional qualities which where the person hold and make, and that qualities, that secondary qualities make him or her different from others, and that's called the secondary traits. So let's study all these particular categories one by one. So when we talk about the Gordon Allport, the theory is mainly based on these three main categories of personalities trait. That is the cardinal trait, central trait, and the secondary trait. So when we talk about the cardinal trait are the very dominating trait, which always characterize a person throughout the life. So it dominating means we are talking about the negative quality of an individual, and that quality always dominates himself or herself in front of the others. For example, even in India, mostly the people, the students, the learners call their friends and classify into various dominating characteristics or the words that they call for, and accordingly such names, such characteristics, such quality, even a negative quality will be known by them for that particular person which is being called for. For example, if we all, I always been here the people who always classified the other people as nerd, bad tempered, drama queen, and so on. Even in a relationship, the people I heard the particular in a couple, the male will always say you are a drama queen in my life. Even in a married couple as well. So it refers to a dominating characteristics in the life towards a other person, and that word is mainly known for, and that's called a cardinal traits. That means a quality, a characteristic, a dominating characteristic that a person called for, and that quality is mainly known by his or her, you can see words. According to the Gordon Alport, these particular you can see characteristics or the qualities, whether positive or negative, and automatically it develops later on in life. And automatically, if someone called me bad tempered, so automatically the other people will also consider me as a bad tempered, as being a dominating quality in me, which is actually not. And ultimately, if somebody calls, automatically a person try, if I am a bad tempered, so I need or I will find out a solution to avoid such nature, to avoid such personality which the people have called for to me. So that's called the cardinal traits. The next one is central traits. Central traits are not dominating. It's mainly focused on the various most individuals. We are talking about the positive qualities, the qualities that the person known for by other people or persons. So, like always, I have a baby, so automatically I was like he's very shy, he's very always be happy, but at the same time he always distract me in when I'm taking a session. So that is called a central trait, and I am not dominating my child, I am always talking about the positive quality, and he's very bright and little intelligent, of course. So that's called a central trait because I am portraying you can see a characteristic, a quality of my child. So that's called a central trait. So central traits are not dominating. After all, it's a basic to portray a particular quality, a characteristic to a most individuals. So if we talk about to illustrate such particular term, a nerd is a special term which is always reserved for extremely bright people. So the central trait would be intelligent, or such trait is distributed more evenly among people. So that's called the central trait. It's a very non-dominating factor. So accordingly, it will be known that positive quality is known for such person, and other people also considered same. So the other examples of the central trait would include it's honest, shy, anxious, happy, resourceful. If we talk about us, so like we are the resourceful persons. We are the honest when we talk, when we are taking up any lectures and teach something new to the learners, and that's called central traits. The next one is secondary traits. Secondary traits are those traits that appears a reaction according to the situation, circumstances. If you talk about in a hospital, like if someone known is hospitalized, then I react according to the situation. I feel, you can say, bad. I feel very sad, and sit alone in a line in a hospital, and that's called a secondary threat, because I am reacting according to the situation. So it's not dominating. It's never dominate your personality. Or if you are, I am reacting or according to the situation. Like for in a hospital, I become sad, or I feel bad for a particular known person who are hospitalized for a long, for a, you can say, long days. So ultimately, it doesn't mean that it dominate my personality if I feel bad or if I feel sad, or a person who are actually experiencing them. So it's not like, it's not dominate yourself or dominate your personality. So if you are react according to the situation, it means you are referring a secondary qualities or secondary characteristics of a person. For example, if a person may be impatient, waiting in a line or waiting on the call, on someone to call, but that person will be maybe very patient, or helping an elderly individual, or helping a child with his or homework. So it depends according to the situation and how you react, and what would be your reaction to a situation. So that's called the secondary trends. So automatically you have also faced, if you're known and hospitalized in a hospital, if someone who have you can say jumped from a wall, or someone who have you can say just flat on the ground. So accordingly, in such situations, your reactions is different. Your reactions differs from situation to situation, and it doesn't dominate your personality. And of course, those who are experienced them, even that also, and their personality also never dominate, and that's called the secondary traits. The next one is Raymond Kettle traits theory. It is one of the second classification of the trait theory. If we talk about the Raymond Cartel, it is one of the most popular, you can say, social psychologist who has, you can say, reduced from 4,000 trade list to 171. And he's the one who has reduced the trait, personality trait, from 171 to 16. So that's called the Raymond Carter trait theory, which is always believed that the personality traits are always very, very uncommon and common, and has been found among almost humans. And accordingly, he utilized the factor analysis and combined the all such personality traits, all such characteristics or qualities, and just keep it down to 16 only. And that's called a particular name of that factor analysis, which is called a 16 personality factor questionnaire, which is called a personality test worldwide. So if I want to take my students and learners personality test, I will take a questionnaire form which has been designed by the Raymond Kettle trait theory. And that's the name called 16 personality factor questionnaire, 16PF. And this author, it's mainly known for its 16PF, where the worldwide name called a personality test. So if someone wants to take a personality test, use the 16PF questionnaire. Just give the questionnaire, just fill that all the responses by the participant. That's the ultimate result of your personality. So uh, if you are honest and you can say response correctly or accurately in this particular questionnaire, then your personality come out whether you can say ethically or morally. So this is all about the 16 personality dimensions described by Kettle. So these are the 16, you can see parameters, and based on the parameters, the different qualities has been shown in this particular slide. So we talk about the abstractiveness. We always talk about a person imaginative or versus practical. So when we talk about the descriptors, these are the descriptors. Descriptors are called imaginative versus practical. Descriptors are imaginative, practical, worried, confident, forceful, submissive, calm, very strong, spontaneous, restrained. These are called descriptors. Every descriptor have a score. It would be the low score and high score. If you are imaginative, so automatically there is a score. Imaginative called, if you are high level imaginative, or your scoring would be high. If low, your scoring would be low. So there is every personality dimensions or the parameters have denote a high score and low score. If your score below 4, it stands for low score. If your score above 7, your score would be high score in terms of personality dimensions, or it denotes your personality, that you're having a good personality in terms of having all those qualities. In terms of low personality, because of having such low qualities, or you need to improvise yourself. So that's called 16 personality dimensions. Apprehension, dominance. As I told, its dominant characteristic will always be, you can say, evolved at birth. So you need to improvise when you grow up accordingly and changes according to the time. Fourth one is emotional stability. So emotional, it would be person who are very highly stable emotionally, would be not stable emotionally. So that's why it would be calm. Okay, it's stable, your emotions are stable, you don't want to react, and when there's, you will react more emotionally. So it depends that what, and it denotes your personality and as well. It's livelihood, it's spontaneous restraint, and you want to restrict yourself such lives which is not for you, like that. So accordingly will score your personality. Openness to change, are very flexible and attached to a familiar. So it depends on the person to person. Perfectionism, controlled versus undisciplined. If you are disciplined, so definitely, like you will, these are the descriptors. So automatically, the scoring would be done accordingly. Undisciplined, so of course, the low score. Privateness, discreet versus open. So accordingly, it would be, can say, score. The scores would be based on reasoning, room consciousness, it's abstract versus concrete, conforming versus non-conforming, self-reliant, dependent or non-dependent, or self-sufficient, sensitivity, tender-hearted versus tough-minded, social bondness, uninhibited versus shy, tension, impatient versus relaxed. That impatient, don't control, I have to do now only, that means now. So relax mean okay. I don't want to do this work now. I can do tomorrow as well. It's very easy to do that, and that way there is no tension, no stress to be taken. But impatient is stress to be taken. That I have to do. Whether if I'm not able to do, I will do at this time only. I will not delay, or I will not. You can say to another day. Diligence is suspicious versus trusting. So I think these two words are very dangerous. Suspicious and trust factor. So it depends. It's according having a
Hi
low or
everyone, good
high
morning.
score. Warm, it is outgoing versus reserved. So if you're outgoing, so definitely it will score high. If you're reserved, definitely it will score high or low. Same for the outgoing lower high. So it doesn't mean every descriptor having a lower high score. So accordingly, once the participant or the respondent answers based on these dimensions, then the personality could measure, but the answer should be correct. Now we talk about the self theories, that how you improve your personality by own. So that the self theories has been emerged for. So the self theory is classified into two main theories, the self actualizations and the self concept. So when we talk about who has developed such theories, called upon the name of the psychologist, a human psychologist is Carl Rogers. He always believed in the Maslow theories of motivation, that a person should grow. A person should adapt such environment with his genuineness, acceptance, and the empathy. Genuineness is we always talk about openness to change, the self-disclosure, just explore yourself into a plenty of you can say things. When we talk about acceptance, you have seen what being to accept or not to accept, but always have the things that you will not be able to accept. It's called the show an unconditional positive regard. And that the third one is empathy, that listen to and understand. We our elders always explain a lesson to us, but obviously, but in today's scenario, the people who are not ready to listen because they think that we are already self worth and we can do anything, but they don't need any suggestion, they don't need to understand. So that is not that is not a path to grow. So if you have genuineness, if you need to accept what you have done, whether right and wrong, and the third is empathy, that is being listened and try and always being understood, and that's called self theories, a conceptual framework, and which has been developed, which has been implemented by Carl Rogers, which is a human psychologist, and always believe the Maslow theory of motivation, and always talk about a person to grow. But how the person to grow? It's through these three main qualities: the genuineness, acceptance, and empathy. But when we talk about these self theories, according to the Rogers, there are basic integrants of personality, and these are the basic integrants of personality. The first one is self actualization, the self concept, and the self worth or self esteem. So, when we talk about self esteem, the high self esteem leads to success, and low self esteem leads to failure. So the self-image and ideal self. That means here in this theory we are talking about own self, how to grow. The grow you need three main perspectives, and you need such an environment which provides you with these all these qualities. Then you can grow yourself very easily. So let's focus on these integrants of personality, which has been uh, implement and by the Rogers. So, self actualization, when we talk about the self actualization, we always talk about our own potential, how to achieve the highest level of human beingness we can. Before we doing something, we first to become a good human being, and that's what the Rogers believe, that humans have only one basic motive, and that is a tendency to self-actualize, to grow yourself, to fulfill your own potential, to achieve the best or highest quality of our humans, that is a human beingness as we can. So, like a flower, for example, like a flower that will grow to its full potential if the conditions are right, but which is constrained by its environment. So, people will flourish and reach their potential if the environment is good enough. If any environment is good enough, whether in organization, that means you are willing to grow, or you want to grow, and you are actually growing in the organization just because of the environment. So the environment, of course, a human being will become good or bad. It's just according to the environment. So if anyone have a good environment or lived in a good environment, so of course he will become a good human being. But ultimately, if a bad environment is also there, but doesn't mean that he will become a bad human being. He can become a good human being after a long period of time. So when he or she will realize that. So that's called the self-actualization theory, which has been implemented by the Carl Rogers. So every, whether it's a human being or whether it would be a flower, it would be a tree, it will grow to its full potential. But if the environment is better, if the environment is, you can say, cool, or if the conditions are right, if we talk about the flower, if we talk about the trees, but when we talk about the human beings, they can reach to their potential, they can reach to their goals if their environment is good enough to achieve it. And that's called self-actualization. The next one is self-concept. Self-concept refers to a very organized, a consistent set of perceptions and beliefs about oneself. So, like if we talk about the self concept, we always talk about the two parameters, that is the your childhood experiences and the you has been evaluated by others. And when we talk about the self-concept, it categorized into three parameters or components. The self-worth, that is self-esteem, self-image, and ideal self. That if you are own self, so of course you set an example that you are ideal for others as well. They will learn from your experience, they will learn from your life, they will learn for your own interpretation of all those experiences which leave us a message to learn for, and that's called the self-concept. So your perceptions, what you perceive from your experiences, that gives a message to others, that gives a new learnings to others, and that's called the self-concept theory, which has been implemented by Rogers. So the self is a very humanistic term that we actually who we are actually really for. The self is also influenced by the experiences a person has in their life and what they take out and what the out interpretation of those experiences. And that's called self-concept. That how you interpreted yourself, your experiences, your values, your life as well. What actually you know for, and that's called self-concept. What you believe about yourself, but actually what happened when we talk about the self concept, it always evaluated by others, it's always been interpreted by your childhood experiences, and that's the main reason. So when we talk about experiences, when we talk about the evaluation, so your three main components would be considered, that is the self-worth or self-esteem, that what you have worked, what you have experienced from childhood to adulthood, that all will be evaluated. Self-image, what would be your own qualities relevant according to the situation, and what the people is, what the people considered you as. That's called the self-image, and the image that actually known for ideal self, that any the personality that you have you have you can see formed. It's idle for some, it's idle is actually idle for others, and that will be evaluated by others only. So self concept will always be it always be evaluated by others, and it always be evaluated your own experiences that you have gained for. So that's called the self concept. So these are the basic two terms, three main terms: the self worth, self image, ideal self. When we talk about the self worth, we think about ourselves. We think about the feelings that developed in the childhood and formed from the interaction of a child with the mother and father. Self image, that how we see ourselves, what was important for us, a good psychological health. It influences our inner body image or inner personality. So how you perceive yourself as a good or bad person, beautiful or ugly. So that actually what you actually think or feel or behaves in the world, and that's called self-image. When we talk about ideal self, this is a person that we would like to be. What we would like to be, you have an ambitions, you have your own goals in life, and it always been keep changing. So ideal self in childhood, it's not an ideal self in our teens or late 20s. The ideal self is what you will become, and you have achieved your goals and leave a message and inspiration to others, and that's called the ideal self. So if you are an idol for your own self, so definitely you will become an idol and inspiration for others, for your sons, daughters, and for your parents as well, and for others. So that's called the idol self. So it all begins from yourself only. So these three components of self concept, it begins from your own self. So that is self worth, that you have wealth, you have worth for everything, your self-image, your personality, your image. That would be how you looks, would be beautiful, ugly, good or bad, how you become bad or good person, and ideal self. Now the next is perception. So when we talk about the perception, is all the process that how you interpret it, how you perceive the situations, things, and how the you can say a different person and that's called perception. The next one is sensation. We talk about the immediate, relative, unprocessed results of stimulation of sensory receptors in the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, and skin. So whatever the noise that we sense in our human parts, then definitely it's called sensation. So if you remember that if you go for a surgery, the particular doctor check your ears, eyes, nose, tongue, and skin, everything is going well or not. Or it's an immediate sense to record or to sense your sensory receptors in your eyes, ears, and that's called sensation. So perception is always described the one ultimate experience of the world, and it involves further processing of sensory input. and that's called perception. If you talk about the human nature, if you go to the hilly areas, you always have a sensation sound. You can see the particular birds chiming, or you can see anyone is like biting. So all that the sensation would comes in the hilly areas. And of course, when we talk about the another example is the rain, it's raining. So of course, the sensation, sensory receptors would come in the eyes, on the ears, some kind of noise, a sound would comes, which would you will experience in your life, and how you perceive that experience, and that's called perception. So in practice, when we talk about the clinical trials or in the clinical practices, sensation and perceptions are virtually impossible to separate because they are a part of one continuous process. Definitely true. It's absolutely true. So when you go to the hospitals, everything is depends upon you can say sensory receptors stimulation, and accordingly the doctors perceive. For example, if you're facing something issues in your body, you go to the doctor and doctors will check, uh, you can see the particular part of the body where the pain exists or not, and that's called what's called it's a stimulation of sensory receptors in your eyes, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, and any part of the body, and that's and accordingly the doctors perceive, and that's called perception and sensation, which are both interrelated to each other. Nature of perception. Perception is a process by which an individual gives some meaning to the environment. Their people, actions, emotions, thoughts, feelings are also a part of the nature of perception. And it is an automatic process. It works in the same way with each individual. So they perceive the things according their own self. They don't, and in fact, the perception of one individual will also impact the perception of another individual, and that's actually an automatic process will goes on, and this will work within each individual and in the same way as well. So that's called a nature of perception. So we look forward the more interesting topics, the more theories, the more particular you can see the concepts which are very new to understand. So we'll consider all those topics, important important lessons in the upcoming session. So till time, that's it for today. And thank you for listening, and namaste to all.